Alrighty, so we are live. Anyone? We'll wait for a few people, obviously, to join in. But for the recording, that'll go up on the page. Lucas Lawman's Kiwi Voice here with Matt King from up in Northland, previous National MP, now doing his own thing with Democracy NZ. So we're keen to learn a bit about what Matt is up to. But like I say, we'll just wait another couple of or a minute or so for a few more people to jump on. We usually get sort of about 20 or 30, Matt, on some of these live streams. I don't know, sometimes can be a bit more depending on what's going on. Having a cruisy Sunday?
Oh, good day, good sun shining, beautiful clear sky, still it's beautiful. And I live in the country on a hillside with a beautiful valley view, so it's lovely, yeah. No complaints here.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a bit grey and drizzly here in Christchurch, but
is it?
Yeah, we'll deal with it. It's always lovely up north, though, right? Winterless north.
It is. It's always. Don't believe what you see on TV. It's always beautiful.
Nice one. Hey, look, we've got sort of a dozen people on. Got a couple of reactions, so we'll get into it. Like I say, it's obviously records and goes up on the page, so people can pick up on things later on. So thanks for taking the time to hang out with us. Do appreciate it, Matt. We're obviously, I'm a fairly new freedom-based page, trying to do a bit of news, bit of coverage of protests, that sort of thing. And I'm sort of delving in more into the interview side of things because I think that's where it's at, obviously, just talking to people. And, and I'm hoping to sort of a chat with some of the other minor parties as well, or anyone else that's sort of in this space. So it's really good to get you on. And, we've got a few people that have been asking to hear what you've got to say.
Sure.
So tell us a bit about yourself, as much as you're comfortable telling us personally, and what motivates you. Who is Matt King?
Okay, well, I'm 54, and I have university graduate science degree. Did a bit of traveling, as Kiwis do, got a bit of traveling around the world, and saw a few things and experienced had a lot of fun. Traveled bought an old station wagon in the US and drove across the US and Canada for a year.
That's my dream. I've done a bit of travel to the States, and that's my ultimate, is to go coast to coast one day with the missus. But yeah, love the States, love the bits that I saw.
Yeah, I tell you, it was 32 years ago, and the memories stick with me now to this day. The fun times I had and the good people I met, and it was incredible. So I did that. Got back and did the traveling, and then did the university gig. And so I was an adult when I did it, in my 20s. Met my wife there, and I've managed to hang on to her for 32 years, 28
Good
years
job.
Wedding anniversary last weekend. So a lot of people tell me that I'm punching above my weight with getting her. And I have 3 adult kids. One's a policeman, one's a pilot, and one's at university. So I'm very proud of them. Run a few.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Kids are, everyone that's had kids, they'll know exactly what you mean. Your heart travels around with them every day of the week,
Yep.
So
yeah, I've got 4 girls myself.
Have you?
Yeah, well, 2 stepdaughters and 2 daughters. So
right, blended family. Yeah,
chaos.
That'll keep you. That'll keep your mind busy, and your heart travels around with them, doesn't it? So
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No,
ran a
awesome.
business. Couple of businesses, farmer. I was a copper for 14 years. Especially my boy being a cop, following him, and I followed my granddad. My granddad was a cop for 30 years when the harbour bridge wasn't even over, and he was on the shore, and he was a sole charge guy, and they were everything in those days. Local cop did everything. So incredibly proud. Yeah,
fantastic.
And then just in the community area, I've been a volunteer fireman and a rugby referee, so active in the community. And I love community. I love the small towns all around New Zealand, and the people that are in them, and it's amazing. That's what makes New Zealand a strong country, is our beautiful little network of communities and how people interact. So,
fantastic. No, that's cool. I did a bit of rugby refereeing myself for 3 or 4 years after playing, and I did enjoy that. But obviously can be stressful at times, but overall really enjoyed it. And then as I sort of got up to the senior, or the adult grades, it just got a little bit political for me, so I sort of moved on. And plus I got older, as you do.
Yeah,
Just a quick hi to everyone that's jumping on and commenting. Thanks, everyone. Morning, everyone. Lisa, Amy, appreciate you coming on and catching up with Matt and myself. So, how long were you with National, Matt? And do you have any highlights? Well, of course you've got highlights, but what are a couple of highlights from your time as a National MP?
Oh, look, I was a member of the National Party for 10 or 12 years, but I was an MP for 3. So one term, right, from 2017 to 20. I had to defeat Winston Peters to get that job. So I was a rookie, and I had to run up against probably New Zealand's most well-known politician. So that was a pretty big job to do that. But my stars aligned, and I managed to get in. So my highlights, definitely, I brought the coward punch bill to the Parliament. It was drawn out of the ballot. Some people, as an opposition MP, you can't bring legislation to Parliament, general legislation. You have bills that something might really be interesting to you, and you might want to bring it in significant. So it goes in a ballot, and some people go their whole political career and never get a bill drawn out of the ballot. But I was lucky enough in my first term to get the coward punch bill drawn out, and that had some good potential. But of course, politically, it would have been embarrassing for the government, and it would have been a win for me and National. So they voted it down for purely political reasons in the first opportunity they did. But that's. I mean, I had a case where a local guy up here he'd been involved in a road rage incident where he was the victim, and the guy chased him to his home, caught him in his driveway, king hit him. Or we call it coward punch, sorry, and killed him. And so that guy, got a minister. I think he got 2 years or something, 3 years maybe. So that was a big deal, but unfortunately politically it got voted down, and that's that. I want another big highlight, I guess, for me was up here. We've got this geothermal power station. It's fantastic. It produces a good portion of Northland's power, and it's all from renewable geothermal energy. So it's a win-win. And they wanted to expand their station out to basically generate enough power to send to Auckland. It was a $200 million expansion, and it was stopped by the government regulations. So they had tried with government to get exemptions through normal channels, and the government had said basically no. And then I got what's called a local bill, which is only relates to one particular area, and that sort of bill can be put before Parliament as an opposition MP. But one of the things you've got to do is you've got to advertise what the bill contains and what your intent is, and it has to go public. And the day that we did that, and it went into the online and it went into the media, the CEO of the power company got the big call from government to come down and meet them, and he got his exemption. And he was able to do the $200 million expansion, which is actually just one stage of it's just come online now. And so Northland now produced enough power for the whole of Northland from this power station. So that was a highlight. Not widely known, and people don't really know about it, but it's part of
that is a good one, because I've got an interest in the power industry for personal reasons, and professional reasons, away from Kiwi Voice. And familiar with a little bit of what you're saying, and around the government sort of regulation when it comes to new power projects, it's been tough. Like obviously we're shifting more and more towards renewables at a rapid pace, and probably a little bit quick for some people in the industry. And yet you get things like small hydro schemes on the west coast of the South Island that are pretty much unanimously supported. Yet they get shut down for different reasons through red tape, bureaucracy, the Resource Management Act, that sort of stuff. So that is a big win for you up there in Northland. That's good to hear. That's awesome. So what happened with National? So did you choose to leave, or did you get voted out in that electorate? And then subsequently, what made you eventually want to start Democracy NZ?
Okay, so at the election of 2020, the red wave came through and wiped out 20-something national MPs, including myself. Pretty much every national MP lost even the ones that didn't lose their seats lost their big majorities. So I'll give you an example. I remember that. Simon Bridges had 10,000 majority in Tauranga, and he won by 2,000. So a lot of MPs lost a lot of majority, and it was a bit of a freaky election if you look at all the numbers. But I
don't really have fond memories of that night.
No. It's funny, but things are meant to be, because I'm in the position I'm in now because I lost that seat. I lost it by 163 votes, and 220 votes came out of Nafa prison, and none of them would vote for me being ex-copper. So I lost by the smallest margin in the country, and it was a devastating loss. But I tell you, it also, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I actually think it was for the better for me because of what's happened recently. So I lost my seat. So I was still looking at potentially being the MP for Northland at the next election. The odds were that I was going to get back in. If you looked at the numbers, would have been.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. But I left National because I can tell you I left National because my values no longer aligned with theirs, especially on the mandates. So I've been speaking out against mandates from pretty much day one. And I was down in Wellington. I went to the first week of the protest, and I went down there again sort of like about 2 weeks later. And I met everyday Kiwis down there. I met teachers, nurses, doctors, midwives, mandated police officers that were out of a job because of the mandates. I met basically every corner of New Zealand society there. There were some really fantastic people. In fact, I have never been in a situation. I've said this a few times. I've never been in an area, a little community that I've never felt so welcomed and so appreciated and so unified with these people, because I was there because I hate the mandates, and I will never forgive this government for what they did ever. They will forever, for me, they are villains in my book for bringing these mandates in. They're absolute villains. Yeah,
no, I understand that, and I can completely understand your feeling around that sort of unity and community in the broad section of society at the Wellington protest. Look, I'm really disappointed I didn't get there in that first couple of weeks and experience it. I was just kicking off Kiwi Voice, and a lot of people were keen to even try and fund me, and I got a little bit of funding, but I didn't get up there. But obviously, you may or may not have seen on the page, I cover all the Freedom of Rights Coalition protests down here in Christchurch, and the first couple that I went to, it was exactly that feeling, Matt, where I sort of walked into the crowd, and it was like, oh, that's right, this used to exist in New Zealand, like that feeling of community and unity, and people not judging you and just looking at everyone was high-fiving, hugging, shaking hands, whatever. And like you say, I spoke to doctors, and I've spoken to nurses and teachers and police officers and firemen and firewomen, and just the lot, professionals, business owners, people that had jobs, that lost jobs, the whole lot. And they were all united in this one sort of cause, the wider freedom picture. But obviously against mandates of any kind, vaccine passes and the mandates, no job, jab mandates, etc. So totally understand that feeling, and I think it's become forgotten that was the way it used to be.
And
I was going to put it simply.
The thing I got was that that during that whole protest, which went for 3 weeks, over 3 weeks, didn't it? That none of the members of Parliament came out and engaged with the protesters in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I think they unanimously refused to do it, and that appalled me. Actually, I felt like, as an MP, your job, you're paid for by the taxpayer. Your job is to listen to the people, and you don't necessarily have to agree with them. But they needed to send, especially the opposition parties, they needed to send a delegation of people out there. They could have done it. And it might have saved a whole lot of people getting hurt and a whole lot of damage and a whole lot of expense and a whole lot of, the police, the meat and the sandwich, they took a massive hiding in terms of respect for what happened. They will take decades to recover that reputation, because there are good average salt of the earth people that saw things happen there that they can struggle to reconcile with the local police that they know in their district and what they saw happen. So, I knew it was going to go that way. I warned on a Facebook Live the day before. I said, if the police are massing in numbers, their tactics are going to change. They're going to come in on all boundaries, and they're going to take this whole protest down. I knew it in my gut it was going to happen, and that's exactly what happened. And it was ugly. And I so wish that MPs had stopped that by giving them a good hearing and understanding what the concerns were regardless of what they actually did, if they'd gone out there and listened to the people, we could have avoided all this pain.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. Obviously, the ugliness came out from both sides. The worst of both sides was what clashed at the end, essentially. It's from where I sit, from what I see, the squillions of hours of live feeds and mainstream media coverage and the whole lot. It could have been avoided. I agree. And essentially, it was just the full tension, the full feeling from the 3 weeks that had built up, along with a lot of bad actors, and I say bad actors on both sides, I think. And yeah, it was ugly, and it will take a long time to recover. I agree with you on that one. It's sort of just, they've got a large PR job to do. I mean, I'm still pro-police. We need police. I trust the police personally, overall as an organisation. But yeah, they've absolutely been damaged by what happened in Wellington, and it will take some time to come back. So yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that. Now, tell us about. So I'm shifting on. I've got my list of questions. By all means, if you want to go on a different direction, let me know. But tell us a bit about Democracy NZ. Have you got specific policy like pillars in place as of yet? Just tell us a bit about it.
Well, I'll tell you. I started it because I felt the duty to do that. I really did. I recognise that there's a clear gap in the political landscape. Basically, I found that that there were what I call politically homeless, and that was evident. And I was heartened by the convoys and the show of support around the country, from people standing on bridges and roadsides all the way through the country, and the sheer size of the convoys was incredible. And what that told us was that there is a big chunk of middle New Zealand, and actually cross-section of New Zealand, actually, from the left and the right of politics, that have said this is not acceptable. We are not going to stand by and let them do this to our country. So there is a like I've never seen before. There is a gap in the political representation. So, like I said, no one came out. No one had the decency to listen to the protesters during the first week. And as I said before, they don't have to agree, but showing respect is really important for our for the protest movement, the freedom movement. So why did I start Democracy NZ? I felt that there's an absolute place for representation for people that believe in our basic human rights. And I watched our basic human rights being walked all over. I've watched them being eroded over the last mainly 2 to 3 years since COVID came in, but prior to that as well. And I never thought that I would see this sort of thing happening in our country. I mean, I was very comfortable in 2017 with the system we had. I felt that, those sorts of things happen in other countries. In New Zealand, we look out for each other and we respect each other, and with the odd exception, we're good to each other. And when I saw what was being imposed on people, and I saw the pain and suffering that was happening, and I saw people losing their jobs and having to choose between their body autonomy and their job and their livelihoods and their houses, and crying, walking into. I stood outside vaccination centres and watched people crying, coming in and out of it, crying. They clearly did not want to get vaccinated for their own reasons. And for me, it's all about your choice. You make informed choices and you decide what's right for you. And no one and no government should make you have to make that choice. And I think it's abhorrent to me. And I think a lot of Kiwis feel that way. And I think that someone has got to stand up in Parliament and say, this will never happen again. We will make sure this never happens again. And I can tell you later on when we get further through the interview how I think we can do that. But it absolutely can. Absolutely can.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And the political homelessness, I mean, it's a simple term, but it's one that sort of resonates with me a bit as well. I mean, I voted ACT last election, and I was always sort of positive when I spoke to other people, and I've got friends in the States and Australia, etc., and talking to them and saying, hey, look, we're kind of lucky in New Zealand with the MMP situation because you've got all these choices of these other parties, and they actually get a representation like an ACT or a Green or whatever. And then how quickly did that change? It was crazy. Felt like it was overnight. And then, next minute, I just didn't want, personally, and a lot of people in the freedom movement felt the same, like you say, politically homeless. There was just nothing that was of an interest or felt like that was of any benefit to the large swathes of the middle and lower class. Like it just seemed to happen so quickly. Unfortunately, I thought David Seymour was doing some good work, and potentially the policies of that party, there may be some good stuff in there. However, it's the actions in public and the speech that's been the real letdown, and just people have just lost trust. So yeah, there absolutely is a large group of people sitting in that homeless space, as you say, who will be looking at parties like Democracy NZ and this NNP and a couple of the others that are floating around. So yeah, I totally hear you.
So for me, the arrogance of this government, they have a dominant position, and the arrogance that they've displayed. And for me, I say to people, how many times do you have to be lied to by this government at the podium of truth, know that you've been lied to, have proof that you've been lied to, and then continue to accept what they have to say? For me,
simple proof as well. Simple proof.
Yeah. Easily proven. So once you hear that you have been lied to, and I'm talking lied to on a big scale, and not and serious lies, not little white lies, you go, I have no faith in them, no faith in any of them. I wouldn't let some of them look after my dog. It's really just the way it is. And I think a party like Democracy NZ, and I'll talk about to it later, is a party that will have grassroots regular people in it. I don't really want any career politicians involved in the party. I just want honest, straight up people that believe in the core principles of basic human rights and the principles around we're all Kiwis together. We don't want to be separated up by different ethnicities and different, that what they're doing is, I saw an analogy recently about a red ants and the black ants put in a jar, and normally they don't fight. But if someone shakes the jar, they turn on each other and end up consuming each other. And I thought the story said, and it might have been a social media link, I'm not sure, but the story said, who's the person shaking the jar? Because they're the ones that we need to be looking at, not each other, and why we're fighting with each other and divided, and it's getting ugly between friends and family and communities. It's who's shaking that jar. And in my view, this Labour government have come in and they've absolutely done so much damage to our Kiwi way. They really have. Yeah. And it's been one government. The fabric of society, yeah. Totally. And it's been one government, and it's been the last 3 to 4 years. And prior to that, we had good Labour governments, and we had good national governments, and we had good coalition governments. They basically didn't do exactly what we'd want them to do, but they operated without underarm bowling to a certain degree. Yep. This government have just gone off the Richter scale with their attack on us, I feel. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the thing that's not talked about enough, I don't think, and that is around that actual deep division. And it didn't just come from the mandates and vaccine passes, it was a massive one. That's driven a wedge through New Zealand society, but it's everything else peripherally around that as well. The talk around three waters, and now I always butcher the name of the document, but the He Puapua, I think it is, document, and the lack of coverage of all of that sort of stuff. And any of those things can come up in conversation, friends, family, colleagues, whatever, and it is causing just these rifts. And I have plenty of people that have lost partners and friends. Like everyone's, it's almost like a bloody badge now that half the people that I talk to in the freedom movement, they say, oh, I've lost this friend or that partner or whatever as a result of all of this. Now, sure, you've got to take some personal responsibility in terms of how you talk and how you debate these things, but it wouldn't be that way in the first place if it wasn't so strongly pushed down from up on high. So it is, for me, that's a key one, and hard for people to sort of understand. And I think when you're talking about that fact.
Yeah, and I think that for us, that this all came about from fear generated by propaganda that's been pumped down our throats. And when people are scared, even logical, intelligent people, when they're scared, fearful, they will make judgments and reactions that they might not normally have made. And I look at some of the, I've watched some of the the absolute propaganda that's been pumped down our throats from the mainstream media. And I'll give you an example. Mainstream media, in part, seem to have lost the ability to count. They said there's 100 protesters when there were 5,000.
Yeah. That's the classic. That's the classic.
Yeah. And when the government came out and said rivers of filth, that Michael Wood, I don't have hatred for people, but I hate his behavior and his words that he used. That guy came out and just made a sweeping judgment, and it was a total and utter fabrication. There was no rivers of filth. There was a handful of people at the end of the protest that weren't protesters, that were masked up, that were rent a mob, that turned up there and threw bricks at the cops and fought with the cops, and they were ugly. They weren't the protesters that were there for 22 odd days. They were not. But they were the news camera crew showed them all that footage, and the rest of New Zealand thought this is the scum of the earth. These are rivers of filth. That's not true, and anyone that was there knows that.
Yeah, the way that they shaped it, and look, like a lot of people in the freedom movements, etc., I've written multiple emails, etc., to stuff just to ask questions and say, how can you report on things like that? I've got an interest in journalism myself, as you probably picked up, and yet the one that really got my goat that I pushed back on and wrote writing an email, what else can you do? But it was, they gave their here's the final day at Parliament for hour by hour, and it was on Stuff. And it was just every single bullet point was the nasty protesters, the the violent protesters, the nothing that had no other intent other than to destroy and burn things, and yet no mention of anything at all on the other side in any way. And it just was littered through the article. And I just wrote that and said, that's not balanced. What are you guys up to?
No.
And they did come back to me. And did say, this is what we've got based on all the live stream footage that we've watched, and we've all watched all the independent live stream stuff as well. And I was like, well, it doesn't bloody look like it. You're not commenting on absolutely anything other than that few hours at the end where we had these, like you say, potential rent-a-mob people coming in and creating crap. So it's tough. It is incredibly biased, and the only real option from where I sit is just not read it. Just don't go anywhere near it. But it's also facilitating sites like myself, and obviously we've got Chantel Baker, we've got the Daily Examiner, we've got all these guys, your own page as well, that have just, people just want to see that stuff. I got like 4,000 followers in like a month. But people are interested, they want to see the other side. So at least that's the one positive that's come out of it, is that the independent media side of things is flourishing.
Yeah, well, I saw a woman that came up to me, and she was there days after that day with all the arrests were made, where the police came in and tried to shut it down.
There was like 3 days in or something, wasn't it?
3 days in, yeah. Well, she was just a regular woman, about 5'4", average build. I think she was a naturopath or something like that. She had lost her business because she refused to be vaccinated, but an educated, lovely woman and a very gentle woman. And she told me how she was linked arms in the front line, and a cop came and leaned in on her with his elbow or her elbow and was pushing on her chest, right? And she said, I said, you're hurting me. The cop backed off for a second and then came in with more force and snapped her sternum, broke her sternum. And she was admitted to hospital, and she has all the medical records. It's all there. Absolutely. She felt her sternum break in. And I just thought, how is that? Why is that happening with very clearly a non-violent, peaceful protest? She was linked arms, so she was holding the line. And I heard her tell me that story, and it was very sad. It was sad to see that this is happening in New Zealand, that the police force are being used politically like this to shut down a peaceful protest, and good Kiwis are being hurt in the process. And that's what brought a whole lot of people from around the country to join in this protest. They saw what happened that day, and they were disgusted by it, and rightly so. So,
yeah, and it beefed it up, and seemed to be similar. This interview could blow out to friggin' hours if we get too far into other stuff, but it does seem to be a bit of in certain countries, it's like seems to be the normal tactic. You know, protest goes to a point, they can't handle it anymore, send the cops in and just clear them out. Obviously, we had the Canada protest that in Ottawa that the New Zealand convoy was inspired by, but it's happened in multiple other countries as well. It's like they let people get to a certain point, and then politically motivated strategic moves with police by the hundreds, and they go and clear them out. And there's always going to be the unfortunate, you know, violence and poor policing that comes as a result of it. You know, it's a real shame. Like you say, seeing it in New Zealand was ultra disappointing and sad. You know, I'm from small town from down south. I'm born in Gore. Don't tell anyone other than who's on this live stream. But and you know, and I've got that way of thinking as well. Like New Zealand has always just been so chilled out and safe, and yeah, unbelievable to see that could actually happen in New Zealand. Now it has. So yeah. Hey, look, we'll keep things moving on in terms of questions, if that's cool. Where am I going to go with that? Okay, so we'll come back to the democracy and see what you hope to achieve. We'll do that at the end. We'll close out with that, if that suits you. Thoughts on protest activity? Yep, we've talked about that. So what about the other protest activity that's been happening around the country? You've been keeping an eye on any of that Freedom Rights Coalition stuff, the Voices for Freedom stuff? What are your thoughts around that sort of thing? Because it's countrywide, right? And it's still going. Yeah,
it is. It is. And peaceful protest is absolutely, I've been watching it, following it around the country. And what it does is it's united the sort of freedom movement, and also told regular Kiwis that there's actually a big chunk of people that have been negatively impacted by these policies and these decisions and this draconian sort of overreach that this government's done. So, I mean, people are occupying the Octagon down in, you know, down south.
Are they still there?
Yeah, well, the other day I went online and there was someone filming about it.
Right.
Looked like it was still active. Someone was playing some music and there was a lot of people there. I mean, the Picton occupation, they left, and they left it beautifully clear and clean, no damage, no nothing, picked up all their stuff and left. But which shows what can happen if you respect people and treat them properly. I think that the protests around the country are definitely embarrassing the government, but it's also more importantly telling Kiwis that there is a lot of us out there that feel this way, and that we have to preserve the right to protest peacefully. You know, we just have to do that, and we have to stand our ground. I mean, there's a legislation going through at the moment which will probably outlaw live feeds. And it was around the legislation around the Christchurch massacre and how that guy filmed what he did. That was the original reason for having the legislation. But what I can see it being used for is to shut down people that are recording as it happens events like what happened with the protest, because you could technically argue that they were inciting or producing offensive material.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So live feeds, which kept the New Zealanders informed about what really happened at the protests. I mean, if they get shut down through legislation, that's a massive attack on our free speech. So we've got to resist.
So is that all part of the Christchurch call and the? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is that part of the Christchurch call and the what came out of that, the hate speech laws and all of that stuff? Is that part of that same thing? Is that what you're referencing?
It's one of the things. They're using the horrific Christchurch massacre to bring in legislation that's going to affect us from now for forever, and our rights to speech and our rights to expression and everything. And Democracy NZ, that's one of our core pillars is defending the right to be able to speak out. I mean, there's already legislation that if you're offensive or you incite violence or there already is legislation available to combat the clowns that we've got that come out and say dumb stuff. You know,
as it should be.
As it should be. But the right to speak freely and to express yourself is really important. And if we shut that down, we're going to end up like North Korea.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think a large section of the public don't sort of will not so much dismiss but minimize that aspect of society. You're talking about free speech, but it's such a critical thing. It just flows onto everything else. So I totally agree with you there. So what have I got here? Political economic outlook. So how do you think things are going to go Because what have we got? A year, or is it a year or 2 years?
Well, it's the
actual
end, it's
election.
September, October next year will be the election.
Yeah, okay.
As long as nothing, as long as we.
Whether they don't stretch it out or whatever they
Well,
potentially
yeah, who knows? Yeah.
So how do you think things are going to go between now and then? Just, with the current state, obviously you're going to be doing your thing with Democracy NZ in terms of trying to drum up support and awareness and all the rest of it, like as you should be doing. But with what's in power at the moment, how do you think things are going to go between now and that chance to vote them out?
Well, I mean, economically, inflation is off the charts, and the true inflation, not the listed inflation they tell you about, but the real inflation is off the charts. So people have never been so. It's never been so hard our standard of living will be dropping because people will be not being able to maintain, what they used to do. I feel tough economic times are coming. You can already see it in the price, the cost of food and the cost of transport and the cost of housing. We are going to have some tough times. And when you get tough times and you get hardship like that, just giving an increase in the minimum wage or some more benefit money is not even going to cut it. It's not going to even come close to what's already happened. And that's the economic management. When you print money, and you create debt in a huge, like unprecedented debt over 2 years that we've doubled our debt. There's going to be a time when the country is going to have to face that. And I liken it to this: the Labor government came in. It was like the parents going away for the weekend, and the kids had the place, and they had a massive party. They trashed the house and upset the neighbours. And now it's time for the parents to come home, make amends with the neighbours, fix the house up and start paying the mortgage. Yep. So
you like your analogies. That was a good one.
Yeah, works for me.
Good job. Yeah, nice. Well, let's so in that regard then, so what do you hope to achieve with Democracy NZ? Do you think you can get the party into Parliament? Do you think you can get the 5% or the MP or the whatever it is that you need and to make an impact? How do you feel about all of that? What do you hope to achieve?
Well, I absolutely do, because even in the peak of the John Key era, when he was the most popular, one of the most popular prime ministers and governments that we've ever had, he still needed 2 coalition partners and sometimes 3. So so the reality is, in the MMP environment, except for the freaky result that we just had, the Parliament's always going to the history of MMP. They've always needed 2 or 3 partners. And I believe that with my chance of winning the Northern seat, and I lost by 163 votes, and I've worked really hard in Northern. In fact, some people still think I'm the MP because the election happened and my phone never stopped ringing, the emails never stopped coming in, and people never stopped calling us. But I had none of the funding, none of the staffing, and none of the power of being the local MP to fall back on. So, I feel like I've earned the right to compete against the others in Northern. So, and also the vote will be split because there'll be a Labor candidate, there'll be a new national candidate who will be a newbie. There'll be myself and probably be a New Zealand First candidate if I'm hearing right. The vote will be split. So there's a very real opportunity for me to win a Northern seat, and I'll be concentrating on that. But there's also, I reckon, 15 to 20% of New Zealand that are politically homeless now. And if they can just get it around their thinking that go with the smaller party that has the most chance of getting in and support that party, we can get in. If we get 5% or I win a seat, we can get in with between 4 and 6 MPs. That can hold the balance of power. Then we can allow National and Act to do some of the heavy lifting, but we can make sure that the ship is this never happens again. And one of the things is that if they bring legislation to the House, if it breaches the Bill of Rights, we will not support it. And they don't even bother bringing it to us if you want our vote, because we won't support it. The second thing is we've got to look back at the legislation that's been passed over the last 4 years, and whenever they breach the Bill of Rights, and that's the mandate laws, the COVID laws, all this draconian legislation that we've all had put through, none of them will pass the Bill of Rights tick. So they will all be repealed and gone. And then we can get our country back, because the system that we've got politically is you have to have people with a conscience in Parliament We don't have a constitution to protect us. The Bill of Rights is
Yeah.
a bit of legislation that can be overruled. It relies in the short to medium term of having just decent people in Parliament. And the Democracy NZ Party will be that party. So
Yeah, awesome.
It's absolutely doable. It's doable, Lucas. And I'm confident that if enough people listen to us, hear our message, and do their homework on who we are, and we'll have the people in front of the electorate, so they'll be able to have they'll be able to make the right choices, and they'll be able to see who we're offering up. They will know well before the next election. We'll have our policies out so they know where we come from, and we'll have a viable option for the voters. And if the freedom movement supported us, we absolutely definitely will be in Parliament.
Yeah, 100%. So probably just one last thing then before we close it all out. So have you got, are you working with people across the country in different electorates yet? Have you got people in mind, or talking to people in that regard for different parts?
Yeah, we've actually, it's been really exciting actually, with the quality and caliber of the people that have approached me pretty much since I was in Wellington, and I'd signaled that I was looking at a party. Has been incredible, and so I've got people that have made contact with me and sent me information and from across the country. But what I want to do is I want to do due diligence on everything. I want to make sure that the party that we are building at the moment is solid, and so therefore I want the systems in place. I want the administration. I want everything to be ready to go. So I need the next 18 months. I need that time to do what I need to do. And as people come on board, we will introduce them and show them to the public so they know. But like I said, I am seeking good grassroots grounded like people with life experience and a conscience and a heart and passion to join our team. And we've already got some good people have already indicated their intention to be part of it. And you know, for example, I went live with just a basic landing page, a website landing page where people could put their details in and say they wanted to join us. No facility to accept any money off them yet, but just to give us your details if you're interested in joining us. And in 24 hours, I had 1,500 people straight away. It's well over 3,000 now. And if you bear that in mind, that the National Party's been going for 80 plus years, and they've got somewhere between 15 and 22,000 members. I think 3,000 members for a party that only just started, a week and 10 days ago is pretty damn good. So
yeah, absolutely. That sounds really positive, real positive. And look, and you're saying definitely the right things in terms of what's missing. So I really appreciate it, Matt. We'll close it off there. So you chuck out your website and any other contact details for the people that want to follow Democracy NZ. Just let us know those details so people can find you guys.
Sure. So basically at the moment, you can get us on democracynz.org. There's an email attached to that website. It's a very basic landing page, so that's nothing. We don't have policy there. We don't have our candidates. We don't have our board members or anything like that. It's just basically, this is what we stand for. These are some of our values, and this is how to get hold of us. We're working on all of that, and we welcome people getting onto that page, sending in their details, letting us know whether they want to be a member or they just want to be active and involved. And we will ensure that we get back to everyone and with what we're doing, updates as we have them. We absolutely put the call out there to people that we need good people to come and jump on. I want good groups of communities, clusters of people throughout the country that are Democracy NZ's party members that I can go to and rely on and build a team together. So and Lucas, hey, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do this and to come on your program. And I also appreciate what you're doing in terms of the freedom movement to get the message out there, to do the work, because if we don't do it, we can't rely on our mainstream media. It's going to be citizen journalism that does it. And it's guys like you and others that are doing the hard yards is how we're getting it out there. So I appreciate what you're doing too.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. No, that's really cool. Hey, look, that's awesome. Really appreciate you taking the time. Hey everyone, we'll chuck the links in after the live video has been posted to Democracy NZ and Matt's page, etc. So everyone knows where to go. So thanks heaps. Have an awesome rest of the Sunday, Matt. Chill out. because there's obviously a lot of hard work ahead. And yeah, maybe we can do this again in the future. It's been really cool. And yeah, thanks heaps. Thanks everyone. We will see you all real soon. Stay safe, stay free.